Arizona basketball looks the part in its first game of the season against Canisius. There's a lot to like, and there's a couple things that really stand out about this squad.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for giving a Locked On Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. The show is brought to you today by FanDuel. Check it out. Put down $5 and you can get $200 in free plays if you put down that first $5 on FanDuel. Check it out. All right, Arizona hammers Canisius. This is an interesting game. Now, there were certainly some learning moments. You know, Canisius had a couple spurts where they were able to get back into the game that I don't think that Tommy Lloyd's probably going to be thrilled about. There is certainly that. But overall, I think it's hard to come away from this. And again, I realize it's Canisius. I realize all of that. But I think it's hard to come away from this not thinking this is Tommy Lloyd's best team. It's certainly his deepest team. And they come at you, and I want to talk about just some of the players that you have coming in off the bench. Obviously, Carter Bryant is the best NBA prospect on the team. I don't even think that that's close. And I don't think that anybody would really argue that. He comes in and he's got a perfect little demeanor about him. He can come in, he can finish on the break, he can catch oops, he can do he's shown the mid-range. He is a problem, and he's going to continue to be a problem. He's going to be a problem more and more as the season goes on. Arizona hasn't had a lot of guys like him off the bench in the Tommy Lloyd era that have been able to do exactly what he's been able to do. He is a huge part of what Arizona wants to do. Then you look at somebody like an Anthony Del Orso. Doesn't even necessarily in the first half have the greatest game, but he's somebody that hunts shots. And I think that's something that is kind of that we kind of take for granted here, in that if he's open, he is going to shoot the ball, and he's going to have games that you can tell this already. He is going to have games where he is going to light up the scoreboard. That is already evident. And I think that when you watch him, it's easy to see why somebody would think that. Then after that, you got either, it'll probably be Henri, but you got Henri Veesaar, who looks like a totally different player, 7 foot, blocking shots, making plays. And not only is he making plays, he is, he looks like a difference maker, somebody that Tommy Lloyd was talking about pretty much throughout the offseason as somebody that he had a lot of faith in. And I think that's what's going to be excited about this. And I think one thing that is very exciting about this, though, is these dudes are tough, too. These are guys that you're bringing in off the bench, and they look the part. And that is, I think, what is exciting about this. Then you look into the starting lineup, and everything just kind of fits in perfectly. And we need to start with Jaden Bradley. I'm going to stick with the Jamal Shead comparison. I love the Jamal Shead comparison. This dude is it. This dude is really, really good. And not only is he really good, he is defensively, he is an absolute problem. And when I say defensively, he's a guy that you watch him and you're like, man, there is a lot to like about him. Not only is there a lot to like about him, he is going to be a pest for teams that going against Arizona. I think that's readily apparent so far. Not only is it readily apparent, he also just kind of embraces what Arizona is looking for. Again, super, super excited about him. And I'm excited to see what Tommy's going to be able to do with a point guard that really kind of forces the issue here. I think that we're also kind of at the point too where you're like, all right, it's there's something very, 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 very intoxicating watching this man and watching what he can do defensively and how other teams are going, or how his teammates, I think, are going to be able to do it. But overall, this is a guy that has just shown a ton of potential, and it's somebody that, quite frankly, Tommy Lloyd has not had during his time at Arizona. And if you're an Arizona fan, it's exciting to see what exactly he can do there. Now, I think with you look at then Caleb Love, KJ Lewis. What's fascinating to me about this is that both these guys, there are some games when they can just be kind of afterthoughts, and this team's still going to be able to win games. Again, I do think that we are at the stage now where you have you look at it and you're like, all right, well, what can this guy really do? That perimeter, I think that perimeter is about as good as there is in college basketball, but it's going to have to show itself. And again, Canisius is a terrible basketball team. I don't want to sit here and pretend that they're not. Canisius stinks. They're not good. And not only are they not good, there's not really any point to look at and be like, oh, Canisius. But you can just tell by watching this that you're like, all right, this just looks different. This looks tougher. And I think that's what's exciting about this team, is that it just feels tougher. That is a big part about all of this, is that it just looks tougher. And honestly, we're going to find out more as this team goes on. But offensively, I think they're going to be able to score a lot of points, and they're going to be able to score a lot of points very, very quickly. And I think that's something that's going to be very, very exciting to watch about this squad, is how they go about scoring, because a lot of this, I think, is going to be defensively. How do you really pick this up? And if you get easy transition buckets, that's something that I think a lot of times that Arizona hasn't been able to have in the past, because you haven't been able to really shoot passing lanes. Now, again, that's been different under Tommy Lloyd, but I think you're going to be able to turn a lot of defense into offense, and that's something that I think you got to be really, really excited about. Then on the other side, then I think you can also look at it and say, all right, Arizona defensively, this team is meant for the Big 12. I think that is what is super, super exciting about this, is that this team feels like it was built for the Big 12. This is definitely Tommy Lloyd's best team in that regard. And I think it's really hard to sit here and say that it's not. We're going to talk about how this team really does fit into the Big 12, because I think there's a lot of different things to look at and say that there's something to like. But first, FanDuel. All right, now you might watch Arizona and say to yourself, man, I want to bet on Arizona. I want to see what Arizona can do this year. Well, you know what? FanDuel is the place. You're going to want to check that out. FanDuel. All right, here's the deal. You can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Visit FanDuel.com to look at odds to include. Again, now here's the great thing. Hey, NFL fans, again, we're midway through the season, and you can get a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can go in there and, again, check it out at FanDuel. You will be really, really happy about it. That's kind of where we're at with this point. I also think we're kind of at the stage now where you're like, okay, with FanDuel, you just know that it's fun and it is easy. It makes things just more enjoyable. So hop on the FanDuel wagon right there, and you will thank me later. FanDuel. Also, ROI. All right, here's the deal with ROI. So far this season, we pooled over $20,000 to support players on ROI. Micro deposits lead to massive change with the ROI app. With the ROI app, you can direct support to the athletes you love, ensuring that all funds go to the specific player you choose. Download ROI and join the NIL game with no subscriptions and no fees. And be sure to check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and X, ROI_return on you for more info. ROI, supporting the players, change the game. ROI. Again, this is sweeping the nation, and you can actually, support players that you want to support. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now let's talk a little bit about how this team is equipped to go into the Big 12, because it is equipped to go into the Big 12. This team is tough. I think that's what's very exciting about this team. It is tough. You watch them and you're like, all right, there is a lot to like. And again, you don't really have any players where you're like, man, that guy's soft or that guy can't do that. Everybody kind of embraces their part, and you're going to need that. Again, when you're going against teams like Houston that are really, really good, you're going to need to have a tougher template there, and that's something that I think Arizona has really going for it, is a tougher template. And Tommy Lloyd did a great job in free agency this offseason. I think you got to give Tommy Lloyd a lot of credit for what he was able to do in free agency. I think that's a great way of putting it, but he was able to address it. He was able to get this team tougher. Not only was he able to get this team tougher, he was able to get them ready to where you're like, okay, you can just tell that this team just kind of looks the part. It feels a little bit different. And that's kind of where it's at. Now, again, this team is going to be figuring itself out come March, but also you know too that they can get hit from a lot of different angles. I mean, look in that first half. Trey Townsend, who I think there's going to be a lot of nights where Trey Townsend is Arizona's best player. There's going to be nights where Trey Townsend is just kind of was just kind of another guy, and he was that way in that first half, obviously against Canisius. But there's also going to be nights when he's the best player on the court, and I think that's where you got to be excited if you're Arizona. They can just get you in a lot of different ways. Now, again, the competition is about to step up dramatically. Duke is going to be a great test because Duke is coming in there with a Cooper Flag, one of the a big wing, something that Arizona doesn't necessarily have. Do you try to go KJ Lewis? Do you try to go Trey Townsend? What exactly do you do there? But Arizona's size on the back end, I think, is going to be ideal as far as being able to at least try to limit somewhat of what Cooper Flag does, because they're also going to have Arizona is going to have some weapons in its disposal as well. And I think that's where you're excited if you're Arizona, that you're going to have those kind of weapons as well. And again, I think all of this, and I'm going to keep going back to this, I think so much of this is going to stem from Jaden Bradley and what he can do defensively, because I think there is just a lot that he can do that Arizona has just not had in the past. So we will see. We will see exactly how this does all play out. But now, starting to look ahead a little bit, what maybe you want to see, what exactly you want to see, because there's a couple things that I think you still want to see if you're an Arizona fan. But we're going to talk about that in just a second. But first, ZBiotics. All right, check it out. ZBiotics. Okay, now here's the deal with ZBiotics. With the guy, you might look to yourself and say, all right, ZBiotics Pre Alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. Every time, here's the deal, all kinds of good stuff here. Here's how to use. Step one. Drink the pre-alcohol, and for best results, make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, pace yourself, hydrate, and get a good night's sleep. Enjoy tomorrow. Wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take on the day. Go to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. ZBiotics is back with 100% money back guarantee. For if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege and use code lockedoncollege at checkout for 15% off. ZBiotics, again, make your day a little bit easier on yourself. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. All right, now moving on to where Arizona is next. I think Arizona is about as good as any team in the country, but again, you got to be able to see it. The problems that you had last year, where you didn't really have guys that could make plays off the bounce, you didn't really have guys that could make plays when everything started to slow down. That is not going to be a problem this year. Not only is that not going to be a problem, that is going to be probably one of the specialties of this team, is being able to make plays off the bounce. And I think you're going to be able to see that in a big way. But again, all of this is just getting ready for Big 12 play. But you got to give Tommy Lloyd a lot of credit. Tommy Lloyd did a very, very good job as far as getting these guys ready to play, knowing that, you got to have a certain amount of you got to have the right players, you got to have the right talent in here, and the right kind of players where you're like, okay, what exactly, how exactly will I be able to win in the Big 12? Because a lot of, the templates from the previous year, that wouldn't have flown in the Big 12, because you would have been going against good teams in hostile environments where you could have lost those games. Tommy Lloyd gets that, and he did a very good job. Now, moving ahead, then, got to see, can Caleb Love still be that alpha, which I don't think that there's any reason to believe that he can't. But, some of the other players as well. KJ Lewis, can he be in that 14, 15 point per game role? And then what exactly with the bench can Henri Veesaar continue that? I don't think there's any reason to believe that he can't, but you got to still continue to see it. But again, all systems go for this Arizona Wildcats team. This is a good basketball team. Was it perfect last night? No. But at the same time, I think you also know that this is a team that is going to win a lot of games. And I think come March is going to look very, very good. All right, now we're going to talk a lot about that tomorrow. We're also going to get back to some Arizona football, what to do with Brent Brennan. But on that note, Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day.